For me, it's like figuring out like different angles and ways that you can make something happen rather than just giving up and moving on just because you don't succeed the first time. I have to look back and remember, thanks to their discipline and their desires for me, I'm now where I am today.
It's important for us to first have a moment to honor all of that, because that wasn't easy, and no sense of stretch of the word is it easy for anyone to go through.
Everything's going fine. That is the nemesis and like nail in the coffin for your next best level, I think.
Seema, we're back with another episode. How are you?
I am fantastic. Kids go back to school next week, so
oh wow,
we're all ready.
Yeah, summer just flew by.
Yes.
So Seema, we have a guest here that, as we were prepping for today's episode and I was doing the outline, it occurred to me that a lot of our listeners and a lot of people might think she's certifiably crazy, like belongs in an asylum.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, let me tell you why you may think this person is crazy real quick. Really highly educated, super successful, lawyer, law firm partner, multiple streams of income, has a small baby, I think 18 months or so, right?
2 years old.
Mateo is 2 years old. She's pregnant. Well, now you know she's a woman, right? She's pregnant. And not only did she quit her law firm career as a partner of a law firm, but she also made her husband quit.
Yeah.
Would you do that? Seema, like, take a step back. Put yourself in this person's shoes. Would you walk away from all that stability when you're pregnant with a small baby?
I honestly don't know that I would have been able to do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't. So everyone, welcome to the show. Aman Costigan. What's up, Aman? Tell us.
Oh my gosh, how am I going to recover from this? Do you have enough time?
We do, because you're gonna so beautifully recover in like 5 minutes and show everyone that how you are living your life and how you and Tom and Mateo and everything about you is just so within reach for so many of us.
Okay, so 2024 has been wild, but I should say that it was with planning. So none of this is by surprise. Like, it did happen earlier than we thought it was going to happen. We thought we would be closer to 40, which is in like 2 years from now. We thought maybe 5 years from now, kind of thing. It just happened that we had this plan and we decided to execute on it sooner. And I also didn't know that I was pregnant when I gave my notice earlier this year. We were actually in fertility treatment and for the second time. So we were in fertility with my son the first time. At 35 and 36 years old. And then we entered back in right away, given that we were 38. And so they sent us back again. And so I did not know when I gave it, which is really cool, because January I gave my notice. February I found out I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
So,
I wonder if things would have been a little different for you had you known.
Yeah, no. And now I look back, but I'm like, I already made the decision. So I didn't go back to that. But yeah, definitely. I think that would have maybe played a factor.
Yeah.
But I think I would have ended up here one day or another without my law practice.
Yeah. Yeah. It wouldn't have changed where you wound up, just maybe shifted the time a little bit. But
exactly.
I mean, I've been watching you. It seems like, honestly, just blow up on social media in terms of when you show up, you are so clear, so dynamic, so engaging about what it is that has allowed you to do all of these incredible things that I think all three of us have, listeners, we all sort of came to this conclusion that there are past versions of Aman and Dinesh and Seema that would have said, that's impossible. It's a pipe dream. You can't do it. All of these things, right? And here you are, not even 40 and living your best life. I have loved watching all of your travel photos and all the yoga and the everything just come to light.
Yeah. And not only, I mean, I'm glad you pointed out she's not even 40. I mean, you do the quick math, 38. I think you get out of law school at about 25, right? So 13 years to like get through a career with a plan, execute the plan. And then I think you also took a month in Italy? Were you guys in southern Italy for a month on a family vacation?
Yeah, we just got
right?
back in July.
Amazing. So before we get into the episode, what I want to leave right now for the listeners is an intention that they could receive from this episode, and I'm going to summarize that intention in one word: bravery. I think what we're going to try to tease out and highlight is the opposite of insanity and the opposite of crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and really just grounded in the bravery that I've seen in Aman and Tom and Mateo since I met them back in 2019. And watching the stick-to-itiveness, the grit, the perseverance, and just an incredible team. They
Mm-hmm.
make an incredible team, and that is not by design. It is all deliberate, and it'll come out in today's episode. So, listeners, watch for the bravery. Aman, tell us your background. Who is Aman Costigan that we wouldn't get from social media? How you grew up? Tell us anything of relevance to today's episode.
Okay, so as I was reflecting on this, part of the story I've never really faced or shared about is that in my family line, I'm one of the first women to not have an arranged marriage. So my sister and I are the only two to not have had an arranged marriage under the age of 20, which is huge to think about as a third generation Canadian now. I guess second Canadian, actually, because my grandmother came from India and then my mom and then my line. So the other thing is I'm the first female to go to university in my family line, let alone get a law degree as well. So have 2 degrees. So I think that that's huge. My mom also went against the grain. And when I was 2, she decided to get a divorce from my biological father and ended up marrying a white guy when I was 4. Which again is another like huge, I think the bravery piece coming in. So like lots of, I guess, expectations on, the oldest female in that kind of line and family history and the dreams and desires that my family had for me growing up. And then to where I've come now to be able to leave my law practice from a place of feeling complete and happy. Like I've done everything I wanted to do. I have no ill will. It wasn't because I was unhappy. It's because I was ready for a change. And it was going to happen one way or another. I could just feel it within me. I have an entrepreneurial spirit. And even though years ago I would have thought that something's wrong with me, that I shouldn't have a desire for other things. And why do I feel this way? But I've been able to move through that and develop that muscle and be where I am today and create a different way of living, which my own family doesn't understand. But I have to look back and remember, like, thanks to their discipline and their desires for me, I'm now where I am today.
Yeah. I love that you shared, so much there, because what you just touched on was a lot of compassion, right? For all the ways maybe that might be challenges for you coming from the line of, the women being married so young and having the arranged marriages, and then really looking back and being like, it is because of all of that I am here. And the other thing that I really loved was you mentioning how you left your job, right? One of my favorite things to say is it's never the action, but the intention behind the action that matters. And I think that, when I left dentistry, it wasn't necessarily from a wholly clean place. And I can sense just how different the experience was for you as a result of like, no, I'm clean, I'm whole, I've lived it up, and I'm ready to just put this down with a lot of joy and kindness and gratitude. And I think, it sounds like that's one of the reasons you were able to be so successful with your husband in this endeavor.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So, Aman, you said a lot of things in about 10 seconds that I want to make sure that we give space to, because those things didn't happen in 10 seconds, and they certainly didn't happen with the level of calm that we're talking about, right? Like, first female to go to university, going through sort of like the processing of your mom's divorce and remarrying and not being in an arranged marriage, all that stuff. Um, and I think that it's important for us to just first have a moment to honor all of that, because that wasn't easy, and no sense of stretch of the word um, is it easy for anyone to go through.
Mhm.
But going through those things, uh, at least from my perception of you, has given you an unbelievable level of self-confidence, not confidence. And I know you work with Dina, so these concepts are shared with our language here. An unbelievable amount of self-confidence in that you have your own back, right? You've done a lot of these things. You've been part of that lineage where you've seen how these things work, and you're no longer relying on the outside world to make things happen for you, be responsible for your happiness, be responsible for your success. Tell us about that self-confidence, out and maybe share it from a way that would help our listeners be able to tap into how they can access some of that for themselves.
Sure. So I haven't always been this confident. So I think that's important to point out.
Yeah.
Growing up, like I'll just say, my parents put me in French immersion. I was from K to 12. I was the only brown person in French immersion for all of that time. I had a lot of identity struggles, and, where did I fit in exactly? And, was I white? Was I brown? Was I mixed? What was it? And so there was lots going on there while I was growing up. So my confidence wasn't that great. I'm not also super smart. I just work really hard. And that's the difference. I put in the work that people aren't willing to do. And that's how I think have stepped ahead of many people who are just not willing to do the work. But the self-confidence piece I've worked on, I think, through dance. So I've been a dancer since I was 5. So performing on stages, you need confidence. You need to be able to show up and perform in front of whether it's 5 people or thousands of people, which has been my experience. So I had years and years of that. I've done everything from jazz, ballet, lyrical, song and dance, hip hop when I was 18, continued into my law career doing competitive hip hop, switched over to Bhangra, so to East Indian dance for several years, competed all over the US and Canada doing that. Before I went off to law school. So I think that putting myself out there and that exercising that, being uncomfortable, feeling all those feelings, the nervousness, all of that gave me some of that self-confidence. And then early into my law career, and I think maybe even earlier than that, but I can't specifically say it, I've been learning about personal development and mindset stuff. And that's everything from, having your own back, which is not easy and has not been easy. I have to remember that I've got my own back and that I'm going to be okay, because sometimes in the decisions that I make and the way that I want to live my life is not the way that other people think I should be living it. And I have to know that everything's going to be okay. And I know based on my past that I can do anything. Yeah. I know that I'm resourceful. I'm scrappy. I will figure it out if I need to be. And that's believing in myself and looking at what I've done and what's possible in my life gives me the ability to make hard decisions like leaving the law.
Yeah.
And invest in for us, there was a startup that failed that we invested a lot of money into, but it's taking those risks and being willing to do that. That then increases little by little my confidence of showing up in the world.
I love it. I know Seema has a follow-up, but I have one quick follow-up for you. You said you work hard. Try to help us understand, what does hard work look like for you?
Okay, so I'll just think about law school. So I had, I shouldn't have gotten into law school. I had a really low GPA, not GPA. I had a really high GPA, but really low LSAT score.
Okay.
To the point I shouldn't have gotten in. And there are not that many law schools in Canada that you can just apply to and get in anywhere. So the first year I applied, I did not get in. And people said to me, you should just give up. You should do something else. What are you going to do when you don't get into law school? All these things about I should stop. But what did I do? No, I persevered. I decided, I was Kate, next year I'm going to get in. I did the courses that I needed to do. I got a study buddy. I decided that I was going to cut down my hours. I was working 3 jobs at the time and doing my undergrad. So I was like, hey, I'm going to cut a little bit of work because my parents were like, you need to pay for your own school. So I was like, okay, I don't, and debt is bad. That's how I was raised. So, it was making sure that I took, an assessment of what was going on and decided on my priorities. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do the courses. I'm going to get the study buddy. I'm going to do the LSAT 3 times so that I can get the highest score that I possibly can. And I increased my search. So I decided instead of just the West Coast schools, I decided I'm going to look all over Canada and put myself everywhere because someone is going to say yes at some point. It's just a matter of when. So for me, it's like figuring out like different angles and ways that you can make something happen rather than just giving up and moving on just because you don't succeed the first time.
I love it. I love it. So good. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm not sure if I want to ask my follow-up or ask a follow-up to what it was that you just said, because
Ask both. Ask both.
yeah, you really shared just a ton there. I wanted to go back a little bit and say you had mentioned this lack of confidence because of all the reasons, right? The schooling and what your skin color is, your dad, and all this, your non-biological father, and all that. And then you said, "But I'm up there dancing and doing all of these different dance moves in front of a lot of people in an unfamiliar place from time to time to time in a competitive setting." So my question, I'm imagining young Aman at 5, really starting to question at least what it is that is happening in her world. And I mean, were you able to talk to your parents about this? How did you reconcile this? I don't know, I guess you could say like identity segment happening for you?
Yeah, I didn't really talk about it with my parents. Because I didn't really know anybody who was like me. Back then,
Yeah.
there were not people like me
Right.
who had a mom with an arranged marriage, and then she leaves her husband, and then now she gets married and has a white dad. And I dealt with it with myself. I never
Mhm.
I just saw it as an internal struggle
Mm.
and something that I just faced. And it changed, right? As a teenager, it has a bigger impact, I remember. Right. And then when I was part of a East Indian dance team and I didn't know the language like everybody else did on the team, but I could dance. It's kind of like my LSAT score and my GPA, right? Like, it's like, I got to figure out, do I say I don't understand and get somebody to translate it for me? It's not something you can just punch into Google Translate because that wasn't there at the
Wasn't
time.
a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I had to figure it out myself. And like, I would get dropped. I one time got dropped off at somebody else's house because a brown dad and girl that I had made friends with at school, I didn't want her to not be my friend. I got dropped off at somebody else's house so that they didn't drop me off at my own house because I knew my dad would be outside because he's often outside at the time when I was growing up. And I didn't want them to see that my dad was white. And so it's just like facing things like that, right? And like not knowing the language and not like I can understand, but just on a very basic level. So it's like, but I know French. Like how helpful. So, it was a lot and I dealt with it myself.
How did was the dance like a therapeutic outlet?
I feel like it was an outlet. It was a way to connect myself with my identity. Like when I was doing East Indian dance and like the jazz, ballet, lyrical, song and dance, hip hop, all the things that I did, like I was just good at it. So it kind of went to that ability of, being good and also something different. There was no brown girls that were doing jazz and hip hop and that kind of thing back then. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to me, that was something that made me different and stand out. And here I am again, standing out and separating myself and having to be having to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so powerful how you've really taken all of your life experiences and really used them to scaffold one another into you being able to step into this new level of, I mean, honestly, quantum leaping into an alternate existence that is not available to most people. It's available to everyone, but most people will never quite figure out how to turn the key. So I think that that's just really great. Before I let Dinesh talk, because I know I've been chatting a lot, but I just wanted to say, I think when you said I work really hard, I would just push back a little bit and say, I think you're actually intuitive beyond, like if smart versus intuitive, I almost would feel like you're saying you're really able to tap into what you need to do, not what anybody else needs to do, but what you need to do to get to that next step in a way that actually serves you and fuels you and makes you happy.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, so good. So you left the law firm and you had a plan all along. And I think somewhere along that plan, I don't know when the plan was hatched, but somewhere along the plan, our paths crossed. And I remember it was in 2019 at a conference in DC. And I think you were in the process of executing the plan. And now looking back over the 5 years, I can tell you knew the destination, but you didn't know the steps or the path to that destination. Talk us through that a little bit, right? Go back to where we met, or what was the plan, where you and I got acquainted with each other, and then the steps along that plan, and get us to today.
Okay. So I met my husband in law school.
Mm-hmm.
So we have been together since first year law. We have had our careers go together. And so I think that has been part of our journey as well, because we're both in private practice. He's a litigator. I did board and tribunal, so discipline hearing work. So when professionals are disciplined, I'm part of that process. I'm the lawyer as part of one of the parties. So
did you guys work at the same firm too?
No.
Okay,
No.
got it. Okay.
But we carpooled together for almost 12 years to the office until earlier this year. And obviously during the pandemic, which it slowed down a bit. Which was huge too, right? Like that was a huge change for us earlier this year too, to no longer have that, carpool to the office, chat there and chat back. And anyway, so after law school, early on in our law career, like obviously it's hard, right? Like the learning curve is steep, and I was like, work hard. I was told be conservative. That was the advice given to me. I worked hard, let go of hobbies, friends, seeing my family. They don't live in town, so flying to see them. And then around 2017, 2018, Tom learned about the personal finance, financial independence, retire early movement, so FIRE, and also financial independence. I was not so in on that in 2017. I had just paid off almost 100 grand in student loans between my $70,000 for law school, which I recognize is lower than the US, and also my $30,000 Mercedes that I bought because lifestyle creep is real. And when I became a lawyer in 2013, that's what I did, is I bought it myself a Mercedes. So so that was like kind of the beginning of it. My lifestyle creep was starting because I was like, oh, I have 3 Prada bags already. Like I was like, I could keep this going, right? But Tom was like, we should plan for the future, because if we, there's this thing called FIRE and we can be financially independent. And I did not understand it. But around 2018, I kind of got involved. I was like, okay, I can understand. So we sold both of our Mercedes because, of course, Tom also bought a Mercedes. So we sold both of our Mercedes and we got just one, and we still have the same vehicle, one BMW SUV, like a 2012. So that's what we have. And it was little changes like that we started making. People were like, oh, when are you guys going to upgrade your house? You're both lawyers. I became a partner. They're like, when are you going to upgrade your house? We're like, we don't want to be tied to our lawyer salary in order to be able to keep our house. Like that's just not something that makes us, like, for our future plans. So we then went to the conference you and I met at. And it's so crazy to think back on now, because at the time I was personal finance blogging anonymously because I didn't want anybody to know, but I was really just talking about my paying off my student debt, like of 100K and the car that I had. So I was focused on that. And that's what I was blogging about, because I wanted to help other people, figure out how to do that quickly. I did mine in 3.5 years. And so I had it done.
Yeah, which in itself is funny. Like, and I know a lot of people who started in the personal finance blogging space anonymously, right? And now when I look back, it's like, I'll show you my expensive bag and car as an indicia of success, but I want to keep secret that I am fiscally responsible. I'm taking care of my money. I'm not wasting it, and I'm planning for the future. And I want to show you how to do that too, so that you don't have to work till you die. Right? If you
Yeah.
take a step back, it's like we want to hide that stuff. But yeah, we'll tell you that we got a new Mercedes, right?
Yep. Yep.
And it's just funny when you think back to like the journeys a lot of us have had, right? There's nothing wrong with being fiscally responsible, right? There's nothing wrong today with saying I don't want to drink alcohol, right?
Mhm.
But there's our brains create so much stigma based on how we're conditioned to operate that that I'm glad you shared that. Sorry, I interrupted your story, but
No,
it
no.
was a great point that you made.
No, and that's fine. Like those were the things that I had to deal with, right? And
Yeah.
and I think part of it is like I do want to have a nice house one day. Like I currently love my house, but I do aspire to have a different house. But I know that the whole instant gratification thing is not going to allow me to be where I am right now today. It's because of the decisions that we made 7 years ago, going to FinCon, meeting you, and then also I met, and I know we're probably going to talk about it, but I met someone else who then is the one who introduced me to the QMAR program,
Yeah.
who now is the business that I'm running. And I had an idea in 2019. I was like, I need to go to that conference. I was like, I don't understand it. I just had this feeling.
Yeah.
Going back to Seema's point about intuition, I was like, I have this feeling. I told Tom, I'm like, I'm going. If you want to come, you can come. If you don't want to come, don't come because I'm going. And it's crazy to think 2020, it was COVID. So if I had waited the following year, I would never have gone and I would never have met you. I would never have met Okoma, who is the one that my current business is based on. So it's just crazy to look back and reflect on that time.
Yeah.
I really feel like it's a testament to when you get those intuitive hits, they're not logical. You can't explain them. You can't, and they whisper to you. It sounds like that was more of like this unexplainable feeling in your body and in terms of your thoughts. And you just knew you had to go for it. And importantly, I love that you drew out these things are like sliding glass doors, right? You missed the opportunity here. I firmly believe that what's meant for you will never really pass you up. And also you could potentially delay what that beautiful outcome is that you so intentionally want to create for yourself simply because you waffled and didn't listen to your intuition. Yeah. So powerful. And I'm so glad that you're talking about why that's so important. And I did have a little bit of a question though, because when you were talking about, your husband getting into financial independence and things, and then you said you weren't really quite there yet. What happened for you? What shifted that made you say, you know what, I'm going to actually look at this a little differently. I'm going to have him teach me a little bit more, or I'm going to learn more on my own. What was that about?
Yeah. So I always had like a frugality growing up, I guess, right? Because my parents, we grew up middle class. My parents had 3 kids. So it was very much like you pay for your own school, right? You pay for like your undergrad. And like, so I was like hustling to get scholarships, bursaries, all that kind of stuff. Same thing into law school. I was doing the same thing. So I just kind of came with that attitude. So then when I had the $100,000 in debt, I was like, I got to pay that off. And then when I was finally paid off, I was like, I finally have $1 to my name. Why do I want to get on a financial independence retire early train and save like 80% of our income?
Sure.
Or live on your income and not mine. We weren't married at the time, but like just those kinds of discussions. And so I was kind of not really on, like I was into like, let's put the savings account together. Let's, talk about the retirement account. Like, yeah, those make sense to me because that's what I had been taught. But anything beyond that was not really in my like capacity. But then we had discussions around like being early in our law careers, like the first 5 years are difficult. And it was like, do you want to do this forever? And I was like, no, this is not how I thought that my life, this is not how I thought lawyer life was going to be. Yeah. For some reason, I thought it was going to be more like what's on TV or something like that.
Like
Again,
Suits.
I'm the first,
I'm
the first lawyer in my family. Like, I didn't know that this is what it's like. Yeah. And I was working really hard. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the people that I work with, like when I'm older. I don't want to be doing this. And so I was like, I'm on board. Let's do it. Let's figure out the plan. And because I'm a planner and I know how to strategize and I'm futuristic, I was like, hey, let's put in a plan. Let's figure this out. Even though at the time we weren't married, we just knew that we wanted something different. So really it's been from 2018 to 2024 that we've been making these sacrifices and decisions together about money that have landed us in the financial independence spot that we are in currently, that we're both able to leave our law careers.
Yeah. Along the way, though, I mean, and I think you touched upon this with the FinCon conference, right? Like you didn't know much about it, you wanted to go. I'd heard try a lot of stuff, right? And sort of knowing you and following you on Instagram and seeing what you've done, you've tried a lot of things, and I think a lot of times we get stuck in trying a lot of things because we make this calculation of, is the perceived effort going to outweigh the perceived benefit? And in your case, the answer is clearly yes, but not in the way that you expected, right? I mean, to think about going to FinCon and figuring out financial independence, to meeting the person who was selling books there, children's books, right? When she had a podcast, I think the Happy Lawyer podcast at that time, and now it's the genesis of your business. So talk to us a little bit about why and why we should try more things, and why it's not so scary to just create a bunch of commotion and like be like the little Tasmanian devil and allow the universe to say, hey, what's going on over there? Let me pay attention to this person.
Yeah, so I'll just outline the time. So 2012 is when I became a lawyer, was lawyering. 2018 is when I became a partner, and I also woke up because I checked off everything. Go to law school, get 2 degrees, become an associate, become a partner. I had done all the things. And so then it was like, what next? And so it really opened myself up to being like, is this how I want to really be living my life? And that's when I started investing in personal development conferences and programs, and surrounding myself with lawyer entrepreneurs who were doing things differently and were multi-passionate. Because at the time I had thought that you could only do one thing. You're a lawyer and you're a lawyer forever, and that's it. That's all you're going to do. I didn't know anybody else in my circle. So thank goodness for conferences like that and the internet and podcasts that you guys have, that we're able to blow our own minds in that way. So I was opening up my mind, and I was like, Kate, I'm going to sign up for this course and this course. And I exercise constraints, so only 3. And one of them ended up being with the Akoma, who was the children's book author and also the host of the Happy Lawyer Project. I'd listened to her and I wanted to meet her at FinCon. I was like, I need to meet her. So I don't know if she knows this, but like I kind of stalked her and was like, hey, I need to like corner her somewhere, because I wanted to talk to her. I thought she was so cool from what I had listened to and her like Instagram. And it was her who invited me to the dinner with you. Yeah. So it's just crazy to like think back on all that. But she then offered a program with her husband in January 2020 that they called Quarterly Marriage Alignment Retreats. Again, that was the year that I was getting married and the pandemic was just about to happen. And if it hadn't been for me meeting her, I probably wouldn't have signed up for her program in January 2020. And after that, they never ran any programs after that. So it was just the one time. So thank gosh I said yes to trying different things, to expanding what's possible, and not really looking for that immediate, like, oh, I'm going to do this thing and it's going to get me this result. Yeah. Because that's not the way that real life really works.
Yeah. And Seema, I don't know if you've met Akoma, but Akoma is a force of nature. She is a lawyer. She practices. She's building a hotel in Costa Rica. She's a 2 children's books author. And this is a really long shout out to Akoma. She's also friends with Goli, who I'm really good friends with. And when I went to Costa Rica when did I go? In May. I went in May to go surfing. I was about 2 hours away from Acoma, and we had made a tentative plan to meet up. But I got there and I was like, oh man, I just can't make the trip all the way to Nosara. And I don't know if you've been to Nosara, but the road is so bumpy. It takes like 3 hours. It's just, and I think it's deliberately that way to keep tourists away. Like it's just a difficult trek to get to. So long shout out, Acoma.
Yeah, well, she sounds incredible. I'm just so blown away, because I think one of the questions, so you work a lot with your whole venture and what you're promoting right now, I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more, is, helping couples create a life that's different than maybe the one that they're living, right? And I'll let you explain more about the details of all of that. But have you found in your new area of work here, but then also just in life, where it's like if the couple is kind of going along and one decides, hey, you know what, this isn't working for me, something about life, not the marriage itself, but maybe some aspect of their life together isn't working. And then they actually make a shift or they start doing something differently. Is it resistance by the other partner? Is there more often a willingness to go along? What have you found?
I find that, so in a lot of couples, I can't generalize, but
Sure.
from what I've seen, there's like, you have the me, who's like the planner, the fun, I coordinate fun activities. Tom shows up to those fun activities, right? Unless there's something he's very passionate about, which is like the personal finance piece, then like I have to sit down. Like then there's going to be a meeting and he's going to make sure he shows up and we're going to talk about the money, right? And he gets very excited about that. Yeah. But usually there's one person who's like the dreamer, the like futuristic person, and then the other person just kind of like not really tags along, but kind of like, sure, I'm here for the ride. Let's just do this. Mm-hmm. And that is kind of the dynamic that I've been seeing. A lot of the planner person is usually like me in them. And then there's the Tom who's more laid back. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like we never really sat down together to plan to come up with, okay, where's like the happy medium of where we're headed together as a couple. We do all this individual goal setting and all of this personal, like I love personal development. I love it. I love professional development. But what about like the marriage, which is the one thing that is like our, 24/7 thing that's happening. And then we have kids and you add to that and that changes the dynamic again. But we're never really checking in. Like, yeah, we check our goals quarterly as an individual, but what about as a couple and where we headed together? And there's usually one person in the partnership, like Tom, who had resistance around planning as a couple, not because of any like thing in particular, but because he was like, why would we do this? And everything's going fine. So like, why do we need to do this? And like, I'd rather not.
Everything's going fine. That is the nemesis and like nail in the coffin for your next best level, I think.
So tell us about Kumar. You met Akoma. She ran this retreat and then she didn't run it ever again, right? And I think her husband and Akoma were doing it for themselves as well, and it paid a lot of. It was, the results were fantastic for them. How did you get involved, and what are you doing with it now?
Yeah, so I've been dabbling. That's maybe not fair, but like I've been teaching yoga to lawyers online since January 2021. So entrepreneurship has been something that I was doing in addition to my law practice. And I was running vision board workshops for lawyers as well. So that's what I did for the last couple of years. And I was like, hey, I can do this. I can make money for myself. This is interesting. And I don't have to rely on the lawyer salary. So what happened was Tom and I joined this program in January 2020. We did it with them. It was amazing. Our results have been like crazy, as you have heard some of the things. But we've been doing them now for almost 5 years. Every quarter we meet. Wow. And we talk about our goals for the next quarter, but it's based on big dreams that we have. We talk about money because dreams are funded by money. So obviously that becomes an important consideration. And so really all of our decisions, from fertility, from leaving our law practices, from financial independence, traveling with our son when he was 3 months old for 6 weeks to Portugal, and just recently all of June spent in Italy with our son before he turned 2 and while pregnant, being a rom-com extra in not 1, but 2 Christmas movies. Like all those things are based on our meeting quarterly for the last almost 5 years. So I got an idea kind of, I think it's been under the surface for some time, but I was like, these need to be shared with the world. Like these are so powerful and life-changing that they need to be shared. And I understand Akoma and her husband, they have other projects, right? And we need to prioritize ruthlessly. So they were like, these are our priorities, and that's not one of them right now. So I approached them and I said, hey, love your program. What do you guys think about if Tom and I started sharing these with the world? And they said yes. So here we are. I just launched last month, and couples have already signed up and have already had results that they've shared with me, which is crazy because like they've already done it. And it's because of I said yes to creating something for the world, and I put myself out there in a courageous way.
And you said you launched last month, and people are already seeing results. How incredible.
I know. It gave me chills. Like, it's so impactful. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this feels amazing. But I've gone through so many different things. Personal finance anonymous blogger, accountability coach, which Dinesh, you reminded me about earlier, right? Like teaching yoga to lawyers, which I still do on private request. Vision boards for workshop, partner at a law firm, right? Like it's all of these things that I've been willing to try and put myself into that I'm now at, my next like love.
So, when you share it like that, right, it seems easy. But just knowing a little bit about the law and a little bit about being a partner in a law firm, people that do this, what you're talking about, go through a ton of overthinking and second guessing. Questions like putting myself out there, right? That's not what lawyers are supposed to do. They're not on social media, right? What are they going to think when I'm teaching yoga online? Like, are my clients going to think that I'm not focused on their matters? My partners or my colleagues going to think I'm leaving? And generating an income. How do you find people to pay you for virtual yoga classes when there's so many yoga teachers out there? Like, what am I doing that's new? Or vision boarding? Or, even with Kumar, I think, how do you even find people who are willing to pay you? Why would someone pay me, right? Those are all questions I think ambitious professionals think about, even if they have a dream and they want to execute on it, where we kind of get stuck and we hang out in overwhelm, right? So tell us why you were, or how were you able to make all that happen? And why do you believe, I mean, I know you're special, but I'm going to ask the question that you're not special in a way that it's accessible or available to everyone. And what is the tool? Like, what is the trick that you figured out, Aman, that us homies over here, we don't know?
Okay, so I think part of it is, I realized that I was different and I had to accept that, right? Like I had to accept that the linear path and being multi-passionate were going to collide, and I had to accept that and have my own back. So how was I doing that? Well, I was binging, I guess you could say, personal finance and mindset podcasts. And surrounding myself, like I literally flood my feed. So whether that's social media, the books I read, what I listen to in non-podcast world, I flood my feed and my space with the people I want to be, my future self, who she's going to be. And I keep my discussions about my future plans to an inner circle. So I don't tell everybody. People who knew us knew that we were on a financial independence path, and they said, good luck with that. And that was in 2017. And now they're surprised that we've left our practice of law and we're millionaires in our 30s. Like but I'm like, but I told you back then. So I really started keeping my inner circle close. I also knew that the only way I was going to be able to do it was with support of others, which, as both of you are coaches, you know this. I surrounded myself with a one-on-one coach. So every week I met with her, and every single thing that you listed just moments ago is something that I've been coached on because I struggled with it. And so you literally took me back to all of that. And I put myself in a mastermind. So I spent money I've never spent before, which, other than in law school. But nobody tells you that, hey, you can spend in law school and you can continue to spend thousands of dollars on yourself to up level, to surround yourself with different people. So I joined a mastermind and spent money I had never spent before. And I networked with people who were up here And I then made network connections throughout the US and Canada, mostly the US, which is why my client base is all mostly American. And I was then in lawyer groups teaching for their trial organizations and doing things for their podcast, because that was the people that I was now surrounding myself with. So I had to break free of kind of this like circle that I was in and what everybody else was doing around me. And I had to break free of that. And so that was another one, was masterminding and surrounding myself with people who are doing life differently.
Yeah. So good. And I believe that as well. I call it total immersion. Like if there's something on your mind, go all the way in, do the things that the people who are doing it, do it at their level, quite frankly, right? So if it's real estate investing and you have a friend who's real estate investing and they're going to this conference and you're not a real estate investor, go to the conference and pretend to be one, right? You're not a podcaster, read the podcasting blog, right? You're not a partner at a law firm and you want to be a partner at a law firm, hang out where the partners are hanging out, right? Or any of those things. And it sounds like when you surround yourself with those type of people, with the coaching, and you feel free to shout out your coaches if you want. I know who they are, but I want to respect your relationship with them. If you'd like to shout them out, go ahead. But when you surround yourself with coaching, it really can change what you think is possible.
Yes, it was huge. Dina was my one-on-one coach. So Dina Cataldo, she's a lawyer coach. So she's was fantastic. Helping me. Yeah. So she helped me launch Beyond Yoga for Lawyers, which was my first business. Then I also worked with Heather Hubbard and her mastermind. And I just came back from Miraval with her earlier this year. And I'm still working with her every quarter. Yeah. And then I also have a branding coach as well. So if you had mentioned, Seema, at the beginning, how do I show up dynamically and with this energy? It's because I surround myself with people like her. It's Catherine Morrison. And so she is a corporate turned entrepreneur. Again, that like kind of attraction to that different way of doing business and things like that, and showing up bigger, which I totally relate to. Lawyers are not on social media. Like, someone said to me recently, like, oh, you would have never been a lawyer and had your nails painted that way. And then I was kind of like, but why not? But why not? Does that make me less of a competent lawyer? So it's just like, it's working through and past all those things that people say and continuing to push forward.
Yeah. It's installing a new identity. Not the one that came with your degree.
Yes, which is honestly has been the hardest part. Like, I've cried about leaving. Like, it wasn't easy. I cried. It was hard. Like, it was really, really hard. It wasn't easy. Like, yeah, I'm happy about it now, and I was happy about it at the time, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to have some sadness.
Yeah, I think that's really kind of an important nuance to draw out too, is just because you say you left with a sense of peace and feeling complete doesn't mean that there wasn't a concurrent emotion that at first pass might seem contradictory or be one that keeps you from actually, oftentimes it keeps you from actually going through with it, right? The sadness, the uncertainty, the fear, the whatever that came with that, the loss of identity. I would imagine sometimes people might feel as they step from one career to another. I know I did. And I think that, it's been incredible to just even hear you say all of this. At first pass, it seems like, gosh, you had it so easy. Everything was just, you had it figured out. You knew what to do, when to do it, how to do it. And it's just not that way. My question to you was more, you said that you mentioned that you not only total immersion, but you also did that by way of investing in multiple coaches and in personal development, right? What do you think it is that keeps people from doing things like masterminds, one-on-one coaching, group coaching, even going to conferences? We're so quick to give up thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to become physicians and attorneys and whatever. But yet we're reluctant to invest in the one thing we can count on.
Yeah, it's mind blowing because I've been on the journey, but now I'm like willing to spend. So I'm on the other side of it.
Right.
And at first I was reluctant too. I think a lot of it is like, what if it like doesn't work? I'm nervous. I don't know what to expect. Like, right? Like if we go to school, we understand. University, you go to classes, we get that. Whereas a mastermind is like, I don't understand what that is. And I'm going to meet with people like who I don't know. And like, what if I don't like them? Or what if they don't like me? Or what if I don't get any results from it? Like, I think because we're always trying to get something from everything and like right away. Whereas, you know, programs are 6+ months longer in order to even kind of see results. And you got to be committed. And I think a lot of people, like I even still see it. I'm in masterminds, people pay lots of money, but then they stop showing up. And I'm like, why are we not showing up anymore? And I even question that. I'm not sure I have an answer to that, you know, and even my husband, he just recently went to an event and he didn't want to spend the money. And I sat with him and we filled out the application and I said, we're going to apply. And he was like, well, why would I spend that kind of money? And I'm like, we've invested over $100,000 on my personal development growth and businesses and coaching experts and all that kind of stuff. We are going to spend, you know, less than $10,000 on you to go to this. And he went there and was like, that was my dream. I met people I would never have met ever in this world. And I'm so thankful that I did that. And his mind, like he has come back completely changed. And like, to me, that is like, oh my gosh, like, yes. But I don't know, like, I'm not sure I have a good answer for like why we don't, other than like the unknown and we're afraid of change.
Yeah. Well, not only afraid of change, it's, I think, a constant disappointment that I've tried stuff before and it didn't work. Why is this time going to be different, right? And it's almost a loss of faith in yourself, right? And until you can see the wins that you're having, not actually have the wins because we're all having them, until you can see the wins and come at it from a perspective that, Benjamin Hardy talks about, or gap versus gain, right? You can stop looking at the gap and start looking at how far you've come and what you've been able to do. I think we will stop ourselves short. We will say it's not worth the money. I don't have the time. Now is not the right time. Why will this time be different? How do I know this person is the right one for me? I need to do more research, all that stuff, right? And like Tom's experience, every single conference I've gone to, I've come back so glad I went to it, right? Like just unbelievably glad. Every person I've worked with, because the benefit to me never is what I signed up for. Right? Never is what I signed up for. So I might work with a personal trainer who I don't get in shape, like no shade on K-Mac, I don't get in shape, but like it'll open doors to something else that I hadn't even thought about. Right. And we're dying to know, what was this conference? If you can share, if you don't want to share, that's fine. That Tom went to.
Oh yeah. So I'm not in the Twitter world, but Tom is. And Andrew Wilkinson, he's a Canadian billionaire. Okay. And basically he put on together, it's called an anti-conference. So it's actually interesting people. So it's called IP2, because it was his second year. So it's basically, he brings together all of his friends. And if you're kind of from the not friend list, you apply and you get to join in with other people who have like 7-8 figure businesses and who are basically doing life differently. And really a lot of the things that we talk about, right? So like multiple income streams, tech, stuff that I don't understand, but like I wish I did, right? But it's like just immersing yourself in a totally different world and finding people who are like, oh my gosh, you think the way I do too?
Yeah. Tom, you need a +1? Tom, come in. Check. 1, 2, 3. Tom, you need a +1?
He already said he's going next year, which is crazy, right? For somebody who like didn't want me to even fill out the application.
Yeah.
So good.
It's just, and it's so funny because all it is you literally filling out an application. How many times do we fill out applications for all sorts of things? And we make this one application mean something just so huge in our heads that we're not even willing to do the same actions of typing the keys and, hitting submit. It just seems harder. Yeah. So I have to ask, you mentioned that you have done all of this stuff and you had all these questions come up, and do you ever, even now at this point, still feel like oh my gosh, who am I to do all of these things, to be able to get on social media and proclaim with such confidence, like, I'm helping these amazing couples get these results. And I'm curious to see if you could share some of those results with us. But does that ever come up for you?
Yeah, every time, every time. No, it doesn't go away, but like you just build that muscle, right? Like I know that I can keep doing this because I've done it in the past, but I'm also like, I remember my future self and who is she and where is she and what is she doing? She's not showing up on social media. She's not afraid to put herself out there, right? Like I want to be on stages. I want to be out there. And that means I've got to be willing to show up. But every time I have the mindset drama.
So you're human.
Yeah. Yeah. But I just surround myself.
Yeah.
Yes. Just checking, because you're just so phenomenal.
From everything you've shared and what you're doing. I mean, you're blazing a path, right? And I think most people have not heard these two words together. And I'm going to say them, and then you tell us what they mean and why we all need a life strategist in our life.
Okay. I'm going to tell you. Because otherwise, we just don't sit down and make time to create and vision for our future together with our partner. We just let the day-to-day, we're focused on what's for dinner and, appointments, kids' activities. If you have kids, we're so wrapped up in that world and trying to keep up with the day-to-day. And I'm so busy and I have so much to do. I'm so behind that we don't make the time for what I think is not only an obligation in marriage for driven couples who want more from life, but we just don't make the time for it because we haven't prioritized it. So I'm here to help couples, to wake them up, to shake them up, and to be like, this is something that you can literally do in 6 hours over a weekend, or you can span it out in a week, which is what Tom and I did when Mateo was very young and a baby. We spanned it out over a week and we made time to go through these 5 steps together and plan quarterly. And it's not perfect every time, but it allows us and gives us space and time to make quick decisions. Otherwise, we'll sit in indecision or confusion because that's way easier. And that's how we're able to make decisions and get the results that we do way faster than people who say, I'm going to do that later. I don't have time right now. One day I want to. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, and I continue to hear that. One day I want to, but like one day never comes. Like one day never comes. And so I just kind of want to shake people up and say, like, this is really not that hard. And I can give you the framework and help you to get you set up. I can tell, I have a pre-checklist that I made. Like, here's exactly what you need, from meal planning to your activities that you want to have planned in advance. I will meet with you and I will help you overcome that resistance. We then have the videos that go straight into how to do it with the workbook. And then we'll meet with you on the back end. Once you have your goals, we'll then test your goals out and we'll talk to you about if you're going to add things to your life and what are you taking out? Because we're all good about adding things into our life, but like, what are you taking out of your life in order to make room for those things that you want? And how are we going to get there? And so I just really believe in sitting down to do intentional quarterly planning, and why I'm so passionate and can't stop talking about it, but I'm going to stop now and take a pause.
Yeah, no, so good. What is the litmus test, right? And the reason I'm asking about the litmus test is everyone is going to hear what you just said and say 2 things. 1, I totally agree. It's great. Everyone could benefit from being more intentional and planning it out. But I don't need it. Or I can do it on my own. I don't need you. I don't need Tom. I don't need Kumar. I definitely could do it on my own. And I'll make time. Not right now, because like we got this trip coming up or school's about to start, or like I'm focused on this busy month or whatever. I'll make time. I know how to do it and I will do it. What's the litmus test? What is the question or what is the thought that we all need to have that says, no, that's me. I'm the one that needs that.
I don't think it's for everyone. So like, I should be clear about, like, I think it's for driven couples. Even if you have a Tom who's with me, the like laid back, but like he has dreams too. They're just not as like scripted out as mine. And we want to live life differently, but you just complain and you just do the same thing over and over and over again and you just complain. So if you are like a driven couple and you are like, you want something different from life and you actually want to take action on it, but you just don't know where to start, you don't know how to do it, like that's how I can help you, because you will be accountable to me, which is why I'm such a big fan of the support system, right? Having a coach, being part of a mastermind, surrounding yourself with the people who are going to support you and uplift you and not the people who are going to bring you down.
Yeah.
So I think that having that accountability, so you then tell me when your QMAR weekend is, and I'm going to follow up with you and say, hey, how did that go? Did you do it? Because if you didn't, like, do I need to change it in my calendar? Like, I am there for you to help you and make it super easy so that it's not later. So that later's never going to come for most people. And I help you make one day now. And like, I can just, you asked for one of the results. I'll just share from this past weekend that a couple did it and the husband was very reluctant, didn't want to do it. He showed up with a bad attitude, actually. And we have an exercise right at the beginning that deals with bad attitudes and anything that happens before the QMAR. So we can kind of set the stage for a very open and vulnerable conversation. And after that QMAR weekend, he's already decided that he wants to go back to school. And he's already signed up to go back to school. They've been married for 26 years. So like that to me, like that gave me chills and like is mind blowing because just from a weekend, he decided like, this is the quick decisions I'm talking about. And whether it's the right one we make or the wrong one or a different, like we'll just stay in indecision if we never actually do anything and take any action, and we'll never know, which is why I'm such a big advocate of making decisions and going forward. And I have to say, there are very few decisions that I ever regret when I look back on.
Well, before we wrap up, you have a special for the Happy and Human audience. If anyone is interested in learning more about QMAR or interested in signing up, because I think what you just said really blew my mind. They've been married for 26 years. And you would think after 26 years, you know how to do life, you know how to do marriage, you know how to do together, right? And you're talking about what QMAR stands for, Quarterly Marriage Alignment Retreat. Tell us about what the benefit might be if any of our listeners want to sign up.
Yeah. So one of my biggest sellers, which I didn't know it was going to be, was this pre-check. So like I said, I'm a planner. I need the list and I like to make things easy and reduce overwhelm so people can show up with ease and not be overwhelmed from the week. Because generally you do it on a Friday evening. And so I created a one-page checklist that literally goes through every single session that you do over the weekend and what you need. So whether it's from food to childcare to an activity, we decide ahead of time. So I've put this into a one-page checklist with boxes and with like lines that people can fill in. And that is actually one of my items that I have that I add, and couples have been adding it almost every time that they've bought the program. So I thought that for your audience that I would offer that for free to anybody who signs up for the program.
Amazing. And that is a paid option that your clients sign up for. And you're giving that to our audience for free.
Yes.
Wow. That's amazing. Listeners, you got to go grab that.
I love you guys. So, you know.
Yeah. Well,
we love you too.
Yeah, you're fantastic, Aman. I mean, I'm so glad we finally made this happen. So anyways, great episode. At the end, we want you to tell everyone where they can find you. But in the meantime, we have a little bit of a wrap-up ritual and a bit of a familiar wind down. That's a little bit of a game and question format. You up for playing?
I'm here for it. Let's go.
All right. So Seema and I will ping pong back and forth. And we've got 4 questions, and we'll start first. We live in instant gratification, and you have figured out how to delay gratification for the things you want. But for the rest of us, we want to feel better. We want to change our lives right now. We want you to share with us something that we all can do today, like right now, while we're listening to the episode, driving down on the highway, to make our lives better. What is something that you've learned from your life, whether it's related to relationships or not, that could help us live happier and more human lives today?
Besides signing up for QMAR.
Yeah.
So I am also guilty of immediate gratification. I'm just aware. Thank you, yoga. But
thank you, yoga.
The one thing I would share is it's a life hack that's changed my mornings, and it's planning my next day the day before or the night before. So I will end my day, whether I want to sit down and write it out or not, which normally it's not. but I will go through and plan my day. And then I will also vet the day to make sure that I haven't overplanned to the extent that I'm able to, so that I don't feel bad at the end of the day for not having accomplished all the things I quote thought I was going to do or have time for. So for me, it's been a game changer to like sit down and plan my day, because then I start the next day without confusion. Or what am I going to do today? What should I start with? I like literally have it listed out. These are the things that I'm going to do today.
I love that.
So good.
It's almost like you have like a wind down ritual almost. Yeah.
I try to make it fun with music, because like after you're done your stuff, you kind of just want to close everything and just leave. So I try to make it as fun as I can with like really fun music or something, or a snack. Just be like, it's literally going to take me 5 minutes. And it's like, I still don't want to do it, but it's like the 5 minutes is going to save me so much confusion in the morning when I get up to be like, what was I going to do today? What should I start with first?
Yeah.
And then let life take over.
Yeah. Okay. So now it's my turn. I'm going to pong, I guess. As you know, Aman, you've listened to the show. We have Ask It Forward, which means that the guest previous to you has left you a question without knowing who you are or what we're going to be talking about. And you get to answer it. And then once you're finished answering, you get to ask another question of your own to the next guest. Sound fun?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this question is from the incredibly talented Vivek Agarwal, Bose sound engineer turned musician rock star on the rise. And so he had asked in his episode, if you were able to start your journey sooner, when would you have started it and why?
Good question, Vivek. Perfect guest for this.
That's what I was thinking. What's coming to me right now is I think no. I think I wanted to be a mom while I practiced law. I wanted to see what that was like. I wanted to do that. For me, it was important to see what being partner om looked like as a mom. Seeing Mateo in the morning from like 8 to 8:45 and then being with him from like 4:30 to 7 before bed, just honestly, Monday to Friday was not the way I wanted to live my life and how I saw my future. And so being able to have that experience, go back with a different perspective as a mom and a lawyer, I think I came back differently in the best way. And then from that place, I've been able to make the decisions that I did. And then as I welcome in my next baby, it's like, okay, what's the next, birthing going to look like? What's up?
I love that.
So good.
Yeah, that's such a powerful response, in that to be able to say, you know what, things are the way they are and actually wouldn't take that other option.
Yeah.
I don't even know how that would feel. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but certainly leaves me with chills. So with that, Aman, what question would you like to leave for our next happy and human guest?
Name your guilty pleasure.
Ooh.
That's a good one. Honestly, like name your guilty pleasure, honestly, because we don't want anyone to
Yes.
represent an untruth or materially fabricate a representation. Good stuff. Good stuff. I like that question. I got it. I'm so glad we could do this. And we can't thank you so much for spending some time with us and really sharing your journey, because there's so much inspiration there. You're an inspirational person. Everything you do, everything you represent, everything you put out into the world is in the name of service. And so we want to thank you. And one way we thank our guests on the show is by asking them to share a charity, an organization that they feel really close about, to raise awareness about that organization. But then we'll make a contribution on behalf of the Happy and Human podcast in your name, and also raise awareness with our audience. So is there a organization that we can make a contribution to on your behalf?
Yeah, so I've been on lots of podcasts. This is the first time that this has happened. And so I just want to say how wonderful this is that you guys are doing that.
Thank you.
And then I would say Basically Babies is the organization, the charity. And it's basically necessities
that's
for
one
newborns.
Organization or all babies on the planet?
No, Basically Babies, just in my local city.
Basically Babies. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying basically you'd like us to support all the babies on the
all
planet.
the babies.
Yeah.
That too. Can we do that?
I had a gulp.
Goodness.
I was like,
big dreams. Wow.
Basically babies. Got it. And it's in Edmonton or Vancouver?
Yes. Yes, Edmonton.
Edmonton. Awesome.
We look forward to supporting them.
Yeah, good stuff.
I'm sure that our listeners have all sorts of questions about just more details. What is it? How long is it? What does it look like? All of those things. So tell us, where can they find you? What's going on? How can they get in touch? And anything else you'd like to add?
Sure. So basically, it's my name. That's my website. And I know you guys are going to link it below. So I'll just leave it at that. And the program is just /program. And I also have a freebie basically that summarizes and has the framework. So if anybody's curious or wants to sit down with their spouse and kind of talk about, hey, this is what it looks like, it's a little glimpse into exactly what the 5-step framework is for the weekend, and more of Tom and I's story in there as well.
So beautiful. Thank you so much. We know you've got a ton going on, and we appreciate you making the time for Happy and Human and all of the listeners to come on and share your incredible story with us. Thank you.
Thank you.